An alleged killer reveals in court the chilling final words before he beheaded his own boss.
This is an individual that stole from the victim, stole yet again from the victim, knew he was about to be caught and exposed, went to the home dressed covered so that no one could potentially see him, brought a taser, brought a knife, and eventually killed his victim and chopped up his body with the goal of no one ever finding out that he was the person responsible.
Tech CEO Fahim Saleh was murdered in his own luxury apartment in the Lower East Side of Manhattan nearly 4 years ago. Now his alleged killer, who was supposed to be his trusted employee, is sharing the chilling final words his boss said to him before the brutal slashing. 25-year-old Tyrese Haspil is charged with first-degree murder for the 2020 brutal slaying of the tech CEO. Prosecutors say the former executive assistant killed his boss to avoid paying back the hundreds of thousands of dollars he allegedly stole from Saleh. According to investigators, Haspil worked as Saleh's executive assistant and handled the entrepreneur's finances and personal matters. Saleh gave Haspil the title of chief of staff at his venture capital investment firm. But instead of completing his normal work duties, Haspil allegedly embezzled $100,000 from Saleh. Saleh reportedly cut Haspil a break by not reporting him to authorities when he discovered what happened. Instead, Saleh brokered a repayment plan with him, only for Haspil to gruesomely kill him later on. And the details of the slaying were horrific. Haspil allegedly zapped Saleh with a taser, then took out a knife and fatally stabbed him. But that wasn't all. Haspil allegedly returned the next day to dismember Saleh's body, dismembering his arms, legs, and head, then went to clean up the crime scene.
I was a homicide prosecutor myself for many years. And so I've seen everything or almost everything. It is not so common that we come across a case of this horrific magnitude in terms of just not only the stabbing, the dismembering, and all the actions that took place in the part of this defendant before, during, and after this crime that make it all the more horrific.
Saleh's body was discovered by his cousin, who hadn't heard from him in days. Police described the scene as ugly to the New York Post. An electric saw was found near the body, and body parts were found in plastic bags found in the apartment. During the investigation, surveillance footage showed the killer carrying a bag and waiting to enter the elevator with the victim. Saleh reportedly gave a puzzled look during the exchange as they rode the elevator up together. An ominous surveillance photo taken shortly before the murder showed a man who later was revealed to be Haspil wearing a dark plastic face shield with a baseball cap and sunglasses during what would be Saleh's final elevator ride to his home. One law enforcement source told the New York Post the crime scene looked like a professional killing because almost no blood was left behind and the apartment was not looted. Authorities traced the crime to Haspil through forensic evidence left behind on the taser. Haspil would later be charged with first-degree murder. Law&Crime legal analyst Julie Rendelman explains the former assistant now faces the rest of his life in prison.
So in New York, an individual can be charged with murder 1 or murder 2. In this case, he's charged with murder in the first degree, where the minimum, if he were to be convicted, is 20 years to life. The maximum is life without parole. When we talk about extreme emotional disturbance, or EED in New York, we're talking about minimizing, in a sense, the crime. What the defense attorneys are saying is that at the time the defendant committed the crime, he was under what they call extreme emotional disturbance, meaning that he didn't have the requisite intent that exists for murder 1. Now, I have to be honest, because I've handled many of these cases in New York. When we talk about EED, the typical case we talk about is, a perfect example is when a man walks in on his girlfriend in bed with another man and he stabs him to death. That's what we think of where they didn't have time to reflect on the decisions they were making. I'm not quite sure that this case fits that narrative in any way.
Haspil would go on trial nearly 4 years after the horrific killing and revealed more about his boss's final moments. While on the stand, Haspil revealed to Manhattan jurors that Saleh commented on his ominous outfit. He testified Saleh would say something to the effect of, "You're really taking this COVID seriously." While on the stand being questioned by his attorney, the former assistant would reveal his boss's final words were, What are you doing? Haspil said once Saleh got off the elevator, he tased him in the back, took the knife out, and started aiming for Saleh's neck. Later revealing to a jury he didn't feel much of anything while dismembering Saleh's body, adding that he was numb. He would later testify on the stand he only stopped the dismemberment after the electric saw's battery died. As Haspil didn't deny he killed Saleh, his attorneys argue he committed the murder due to extreme emotional disturbance.
I think we can both agree it sounds more like greed than anything else. And remember, I'm not so sure that the defense attorneys believe that there's actually an EED defense. I think they recognize that if he were to plead guilty, he's facing potentially life without parole. And so I don't want to use the word desperate. They have a job to do. Their client may not want to plead guilty. And so they're basically dealt the hand that they're fed, and they're now going to provide to the jury their version of defense. That doesn't mean they think they're going to win, but they're doing the best they can for their client.
Haspil's trial would also reveal more sinister details that led up to the murder. We need to take a really quick break from this gruesome story to give a quick thanks to our sponsors. If you know us at Law & Crime, you know our stories, just like this one, show sometimes the world isn't always safe. So if you're ever hurt, it can be confusing and scary, especially if you don't know where to turn. But there's a great team to help, and that's Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. With a team of over 1,000 lawyers, there's a reason they're the biggest, and their winning proves it. Look, most of us, including myself, always have our phone on us, and with just a few clicks of a button, you could submit a claim and your injury could be worth millions. And you only have to pay them if you win. There's a $0 upfront fee. Plus, if you're injured, you never want to feel alone. Fighting big companies takes a big law firm. So with America's largest injury law firm, they'll be ready to take on insurance companies of every size. And Morgan & Morgan doesn't settle for lowball offers. So if you're injured, you can start by easily submitting a claim at www.forthepeople.com/LCnews. Again, that website is www.forthepeople.com/LCnews. After Saleh found out about the missing funds, Haspil continued to steal from his boss through a PayPal account. Prosecutors say with the threat of going to the authorities, Haspil decided to carefully research and plan how to get away with murder. At the time, Haspil allegedly even used Saleh's credit cards to pay for rides to and from the Home Depot to buy supplies to clean up the murder. And it wasn't just greed that led to the murder. 2 years prior to the murder, Haspil met a French exchange student named Marnie Chavot in September of 2018. Haspil would shower Chavot with luxury gifts that couldn't be afforded on his $30 an hour paycheck. He allegedly stole $400,000 from Saleh to keep up with his faux high-profile lifestyle with his girlfriend. In one instance, Haspil reportedly footed the bill for Chavot and her friends to spend a weekend at a concert in Florida on Saleh's tab. During the trial, jurors were shown receipts allegedly made by Haspil even after the murder, which included receipts from Louis Vuitton. Haspil admitted to spending more than $7,000 on a Louis Vuitton backpack, trunk clutch, and customized Louis Vuitton birthday cake, confirming he received an emailed receipt just 6 hours after the murder. He also revealed he had plans to celebrate her birthday after the murder, planning a spa day, kickboxing, a sunset cruise, and other excursions.
I don't think there's any question that we are not looking at an extreme emotional disturbance defense winning in this case. This is an individual that stole from the victim, stole yet again from the victim, knew he was about to be caught and exposed, went to the home dressed covered so that no one could potentially see him, brought a taser, brought a knife, and eventually killed his victim and chopped up his body with the goal of no one ever finding out that he was the person responsible. He went so far as to use the victim's own credit cards to go to the Home Depot in order to get bleach and other items to try to clean the area after the fact. So this, to me, is someone that is quite deliberate in the decision-making he made both before and after the murder of this man.
According to Haspil, he didn't want to abandon his girlfriend, who would ultimately move back to France. He testified, "If I take his life, then I won't have to pay him back. If I don't have to pay him back, I won't have to worry about a missing payment. If that happens, I can continue on supporting my partner."
Remember, not every single time an individual goes to trial does it mean that they're saying, I didn't commit a crime. In this case, he's saying, I committed a crime, but it wasn't murder in the first degree. And so he understands, I think the defense understands, that the case is overwhelming in terms of the evidence against him. And so in order for them to mitigate, in order for them to bring out their defense, in a sense, the only real way to do that is to put the defendant on the stand to say, yeah, I did it. These are the reasons I did it, to try to invoke some sympathy, some understanding, if it's at all possible, to the jury that this was someone who felt so pressured by his girlfriend, so pressured by the idea that he would be caught, that he would go to these measures in order to protect himself.
Haspil's thieving ways reportedly didn't start with his employment with Saleh, who by all accounts protected his assistant, who ended up repaying him by murdering him. Haspil applied to work with the tech CEO after he was fired from Moe's Southwest Grill in Long Island, where he allegedly stole from there as well, allegedly embezzling $20,000 from the restaurant.
So I'm shaking my head because, when we think about the victim, we remember that if we go back, just as you described, he stole from his prior employee, lied about who he was when he began this employment, stole again, and yet the victim gave him a second chance. And what did he do with that second chance? Not only did he steal again, but then he takes the life of the person that granted him that chance. And so I don't know how any jury, I don't know how any judge at the end of the day will view this as anything but the most despicable, premeditated murder.
It's unclear how the panel of 12 Manhattan jurors will react to Haspil's chilling testimony. But once they make their decision, and if Haspil is convicted, he's facing a lengthy, decades-long sentence behind bars.
Neither of us have a crystal ball, but I would have a lot of trouble buying that any jury is going to believe that the actions he took were as a result of an extreme emotional disturbance. And so assuming that he is convicted of the top count, which is murder in the first degree, the minimum he can get is 20 to life. The maximum he can get is life. And I think the judge is going to not just look at what he did to his victim here, but the progress along the way. When I say progress, meaning he stole from his first company, didn't care, stole again, was given a second chance. All these things, coming to the climax, which is the ultimate murder and dismemberment of someone who really, honestly, just tried to help him. I don't know how a judge will avoid giving him the maximum sentence.
Again, Tyrese Haspil has pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder, which carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 20 years to life in prison. His attorneys are hoping a jury convicts him of manslaughter due to his emotionally disturbed offense, which carries a lighter sentence of 5 to 25 years in prison. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.